Greetings, fellow Dungeon Delvers, and welcome to Dorns and Dragons, where we work together to come up with Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition builds for your favorite League of Legends champions. Today we're building Thresh, the Chain Warden. Thresh wasn't always the shadowy specter we know him as. He lived in the holy city of Helya on what was once known as the Blessed Isles. He was the custodian of a series of vaults that contained dark secrets. Brother Thresh, as he was known back then, was a very capable guardian, but he had a penchant for cruelty, which alienated him from the rest of his custodians. When the Ruined King came and assaulted the Blessed Isles, Thresh reveled in the suffering the king brought with him. He gladly assisted the king in bringing his dead wife to the waters of life to attempt to resurrect her. Defiling the waters this way caused a catastrophic backlash as the Blessed Isles transformed instantly into a place of darkness and evil, with its denizens trapped between life and death. While others succumbed to this force, Thresh was finally unchained and allowed the burgeoning cruelty and malice lying dormant in him out onto the island. He imprisoned the souls of many in his lantern. Only one has ever escaped him. Though she was stolen from him, he let Senna and Lucian go. He knows their dance isn't over quite yet. Before we get started with the build, go ahead and like the video and hit that subscribe button so you're always notified when we release our builds. We'd like to thank one of this month's Dorn's Blade patrons, Slick. Thank you so much for your support, it really means a lot to us. Slick chose Thresh to build as part of the rewards for our Blade tier patrons. Alright, now let's get into it. First, let's cover the goals of this build. Thresh is a specter of suffering and misery. We need to give you the tools to make your enemies regret ever crossing your path. Like Rihanna, sticks and stones may break your bones, but chains and whips excite you, so we need to get those going as well. Finally, utility and crowd control is the name of the game here. Thresh needs to be able to hook his enemies and yoink his allies out of danger. Okay, so for race, you'd ideally be a Revenant, but since that's no longer a valid option, we'll go with Shadow Owl's Thresh as the base with Fallen Aasimar. This starts you off with a +2 to Charisma and a +1 to Strength, which will really help since our ability score increases are going to get gobbled up with a few feats. You also get Celestial Resistance, which gives resistance to necrotic and radiant damage. That way when Lucian and Senna come back, you can just laugh at their attempts to rein you in. Healing Hands is an ability that lets you touch a creature and grant it HP equal to your level that recharges on a long rest. You're no Soraka, but it's a nice little boost that can help you if you get in a spot of trouble or if your own healer goes down. Then there's the Light Bearer ability, which gives you the Light cantrip. You could flavor this as the soft green glow coming out from your lantern, which would be pretty cool. The last feature for this race is going to be Necrotic Shroud. This comes online at level 3. You get to unleash the full strength of the Shadow Owls through you as 2 skeletal wings sprout from your back and cause an AoE fear effect. Every creature within 10 feet that can see you has to make a Charisma saving throw or be frightened of you. On each of your turns while this is active, you can deal extra necrotic damage equal to your level anytime you land a spell or attack. For background, we're going to go with the City Watch. As a former custodian of the Dark Vaults, Thresh gained proficiency in athletics as well as insight. He also gains the Watcher's Eye ability, that gives you the ability to easily discern the locations of both law enforcement and criminals throughout a city or town. For stats, you know it, you love it, it's the standard array. Roll if you want to, but we need at least a 13 in Charisma and Intelligence for our multi-classing.
What delightful agony we shall inflict.
Whew. Yeah, Thresh is straight up terrifying. We need to turn the Charisma up to 11. Or in this case 15, because he is going to intimidate even the most stalwart people. Next, we'll take our Constitution. Thresh usually buys tankier items, and we're definitely going to need the bonus health here because our classes aren't going to give us much in the HP department. After that, we'll grab Intelligence. If you want to make those Mad Life plays, you need that 200 IQ, am I right? Wisdom's going to follow at a 12. Thresh is noted for having a strong will even prior to his transformation. Dexterity is going to be average at 10. Unless he has Moby Boots going, Thresh is fairly slow. And finally, we'll dump our Strength. Thresh doesn't have much time to work out since he's too busy tormenting souls. The only equipment we're going to specifically need for this build is a whip, which will flavor as Thresh's chain scythe, and a lantern to hold in your offhand for your souls. Alright, let's let the Shadow Owls wash over us and transform us forever by making that energy our patron and taking a level in Warlock. Specifically of the Hexblade variety. Hexblade Warlocks have a D8 hit die, and we'll choose proficiency in Intimidation and Deception. Being a Hexblade gives us proficiency with light and medium armor, as well as all weapons and shields. Hex Warrior allows us to channel Thresh's shadowy energy through his chain, so we can use our Charisma instead of Strength or Dex for attack and damage rolls. We also get the Hexblade's Curse. As a bonus action, you get to curse the target within 30 feet. While cursed, all damage you deal against that creature is increased by a proficiency bonus. You crit on 19s and 20s, and when it dies, you get HP back equal to your Warlock level plus your Charisma modifier. Also, this recharges every time you take a nap or chill out for an hour, i.e. a short rest. Warlocks are unique casters in that they get packed magic slots instead of leveled spell slots. There are some pros and cons to this system. Every spell you cast with these are cast at the max level you can cast, which is awesome, but it caps out at 5th level spells. The big con is that you get very few of these packed slots, which is only slightly mitigated by the fact that they recharge on a short rest rather than a long one, like other casters. As always, we're only going to go through the Thresh-specific spells and cantrips here. Unless you're new to the game, I'm sure you're not surprised to see us picking up Eldritch Blast. This is the Warlock bread and butter, and through some later features, i.e. Eldritch Invocations, we're going to use this to empower our chain to get our hooks going. You make a spell attack roll, and if it hits, the target takes 1d10 force damage. This is important because force damage is one of the least resisted damage types in the game. We'll also grab the Hex spell at this level. You place a curse on a creature. This lets you deal an extra d6 necrotic anytime you hit it with an attack. You can also force disadvantage on one type of ability check. If a creature drops to 0 while the spell is active, you can burn your bonus action on your next turn to apply it to another creature within range. We're picking this up as a way to enable another ability later, called Relentless Hex. Wow, that was a mouthful. Hexblades are super front-loaded, so we had to get through a lot there. Second level Warlocks get their Eldritch Invocations. These are extra features you can choose from to empower yourself and your spells. We get 2 at this level. We'll start with Agonizing Blast. This is a huge DPS gain for Eldritch Blast because it allows you to add your Charisma mod to its on-hit damage. This will be the first passive bonus damage we get, a la our Flay passive. Don't forget, this passive modifier damage is added to each bolt, so as we hit later levels and get multiple bolts per cast, we get to add our Charisma mod each time they hit. That is a lot of damage that will add up quickly. Grasp of Hadar is our second Eldritch Invocation at this level, which will let us bring our Q, Death Sentence, online. Once per turn, you can pull any creature hit by your Eldritch Blast back 10 feet. For flavoring purposes, just say it's your hook connecting and pulling them back. Mechanically, we'll get that in a few levels. Level 3 Warlocks choose their Pact Boon granted to them by their patron. We're going to go with Pact of the Blade, which will let us bond with our Chain Scythe. You get a couple of cool features, like being able to summon and dismiss your weapon to and from dimensional space, and making it magical for overcoming resistances and immunities to non-magical attacks. More importantly, it's one of the prerequisites for an Eldritch Invocation to let us use our chain as a spellcasting focus later. We also bump our pack slots to level 2 spells here. We'll take a Hold Person and Misty Step. Hold Person is a very powerful ability and comes up a lot in our builds because it's one of the early level hard crowd control abilities. You force a humanoid to make a wisdom save or it becomes paralyzed, which is basically a death sentence in itself, which is ironic because this can also be another version of our death sentence ability. Misty Step is a simple spell that lets you teleport up to 30 feet away as a bonus action, which can just be flavored as a summoner spell flash. 4th level Warlocks get an ability score improvement. As usual in the early stages of the build, we're going to forgo that in favor of a feat. Thresh's exposure to the darkness of the new Shadow Isles unlocked psionic potential in him and gave him the ability to move creatures around. We're going to take the Wild Talent feature from Unearthed Arcana. Wild Talent gives you access to psionic die, which can be used in a variety of ways and lets you choose one ability score to increase by 1. We'll take Charisma. We're going to pick up a feat in a few levels to unlock Thresh's Dark Passage using these psionic die, but for right now, you have 2 uses for them. The first is Psi Boosted Ability. Anytime you make a Charisma check, you can roll your psionic die and add the result to your check. You can do this before or after you roll, just as long as the outcome hasn't been determined yet. You can also make a Psi-Guided Strike. Once on each turn when you land an attack, you can roll your psionic die and replace the resulting damage for one of those dice rolls. Psionic die are pretty cool and have a pretty interesting mechanic. If you land the max value on the dice, it shrinks down a tier, and if you roll a nat 1, the die increases in size. The highest is determined by level and the lowest is a d4. If you roll a 4 on the d4, the psionic die needs to recharge for a long rest. But once per long rest, you can use a bonus action to restore the die to its highest size. This is a very packed talent, and getting a lucky streak can really amplify your damage and roleplay potential. Level 5 Warlocks get their next Eldritch Invocation, Improved Packed Weapon. This makes your packed weapon +1 in terms of attack and damage rolls if it's not magical already, and you can use your packed weapon as a spellcasting focus. This almost gives us our full death sentence and our flay, just by enabling our chain to funnel spells through it. 6th level Hexblades get the Accursed Spectre ability, which is very similar to Mordekaiser's old ultimate. When you kill a humanoid, you can spawn a spectre of it and enlist its services until your next long rest. This feature also recharges on a long rest. Level 7 Warlocks get another Eldritch Invocation. We're going to bring our death sentence fully online now with Relentless Hex. Anytime you hex or curse a creature, you create a bond with it. As a bonus action, you can teleport up to 30 feet to any space within 5 feet of your cursed target, as long as you can see it. So death sentence works like this. Turn 1, you either hex or Hexblades curse your target. On the following turn, you land an Eldritch Blast and use Grasp of Hadar to pull it closer. Then use Relentless Hex to teleport yourself on top of the target, or fly through the air towards it. I'm sure your DM won't care how you flavor it. 8th level Warlocks gain another ability score improvement. We're going to take another feat here to unlock our Dark Passage. Telekinetic is another Unearthed Arcana feat that utilizes our Psionic dice. We get to increase our Charisma by 1. You can also cast the Mage Hand cantrip without sound or movement, and it's invisible. And finally, as a bonus action, you can try to telekinetically shove a creature you can see within 30 feet. You roll your psionic die, and you can push or pull the creature 5 feet times the result of your roll. An important note here is the creature can willingly fail the save. Toss your ally a lantern, and if they click it, telekinetically pull them as far as your psionic die will let you. If you target an enemy, you can use this as an early version of our Flay ability. Speaking of Flay, we need to take a few levels in Wizard to pick it up. Wizards have a d6 hit die, so we're going to be squishing up the build a bit here, and you gain no new proficiencies. Boo! You do get Arcane Recovery though, which allows you to recover half your wizard level and spell slots once per day during a short rest. You also get level 1 spells and a few cantrips as well. We'll take Lightning Lure, which can be another cool way to do Death Sentence. You make a chain of lightning and wrap it around a creature within 15 feet. If it fails a strength save, it gets pulled up to 10 feet, and if you bring it within 5 feet of you, it takes 1d8 lightning damage. 2nd level wizards choose their focus school of magic to study in the form of their arcane tradition. Thresh's exposure to the dark energy has essentially taught him how to manipulate space around him in the form of graviturgy. This grants us the Adjust Density feature and access to graviturgic spells. Adjust Density allows you to spend an action to either double or halve a creature's weight for 1 minute. Doubling the creature's weight gives it advantage on strength checks and saves, but reduces their movement speed by 10 feet. Halving the creature's weight gives it an additional 10 movement speed and doubles their jump distance, but it forces disadvantage on all strengths checks and saves. Access to graviturgic spells gives us the Magnify Gravity spell. This is going to be the slow applied inside of the box, Thresh's ultimate. You drop a 10-foot radius sphere. All creatures in the sphere must make a Constitution save or take 2d8 force damage and have their speed cut in half. Level 3 wizards get 2nd level spells. We'll take Rave Enfeeblement here, which works similarly to the Exhaust Summoner spell. You force a con save on a creature. If it fails, it deals half damage with strength-based attacks until the spell ends. 4th level wizards gain an ability score improvement. We're going to max our charisma here and bump our intelligence 1 point as well for the higher saves and spell attack rolls. Level 5 wizards gain level 3 spells. Time to grab Flay. Pulse Wave is a 3rd level graviturgy spell that allows you to yeet or yoink all creatures in a 30-foot cone and hit them with 66 damage if they fail a con save. This will allow you to flay your enemies into an ally wall of fire, or provide some peel if the enemies manage to get to your ADC. 6th level graviturgists unlock Gravity Well. Whenever you cast a spell on a creature, you can move the target 5 feet to an unoccupied space. The obvious use of this is to move enemies around at a whim to better control the battle area, but a less obvious use is to cast a buff on an ally and give them 5 feet of positional movement for free. This movement doesn't incur opportunity attacks, so you can free up your tank or melee damage dealers to reposition without being punished. Alrighty, now that we have the majority of our kit, it's time to head back to Warlock and angle towards our ultimate. Level 9 Warlocks get another Eldritch Invocation. We'll take Eldritch Smite here to add some oomph to your whip attacks, as yet another way to get bonus damage provided by your Flay passive. You can dump a Warlock spell slot to deal an extra d8 plus a d8 per level of the spell slot. This knocks the target prone if it's huge or smaller. Level 5 spells are also unlocked at this level. We'll take Hold Monster here, which just removes the humanoid restriction from the Hold Person spell. 10th level Hexblades get Armor of Hexes. Whenever your Hexblade's Curse target lands a hit, you can spend your reaction to roll a d6. On a 4 or higher, the attack misses, regardless of roll. Keep this in mind whenever your cursed target lands a critical strike against you. You can completely negate it and listen to your DM sigh while they cry their eyes out inside. Level 11 Warlocks are given a special spell from their patron via Mystic Arcanum. You can use your Mystic Arcanum spells once per long rest. We'll take Soul Cage here for Thresh's passive, Damnation. You snatch the soul of a humanoid as it dies in your lantern. You can use this soul up to 6 times to do a variety of things before it's released. Steal Life lets you use a bonus action to drain 2d8 hit points from the soul. You can also query the soul, which lets you ask a question and the soul must be truthful in its answer. You can Borrow Experience, which allows you to leverage the soul's life experience to give you advantage on your next attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. And finally, you can use Eyes of the Dead. This lets you choose a place the person had seen in their life and gives you an audio and visual feed telepathically of that place until your concentration drops, or after 10 minutes, whichever happens first. This is a very packed spell and has a lot of roleplay opportunity. 12th level Warlocks gain the final ability score improvement for this build. Now normally we'd round off any odd modifiers here, but since we don't have any, we'll just bump our intelligence 2 points for the stronger spell attacks and saves. We also get our final Eldritch Invocation for the build. This is going to be another form of our Flay passive damage in the form of Life Drinker. This adds necrotic damage to any creature hit with your pact weapon equal to your charisma mod. Level 13 Warlocks gain another Mystic Arcanum. This time we'll get the box in the form of Force Cage. Remember, you're not locked in here with them, they're locked in here with you. You spring up an immobile, invisible, cube, or box-shaped prison of magical force. Nothing can break out of the cage through non-magical means. A creature can try and teleport out, making a charisma save. Spells cannot be cast into or out of the cage. You can cast spells inside the cage, however, so go to town on whoever you lock yourself in there with. Our final level of Warlock gives us Master of Hexes. Whenever a target afflicted with your Hexblade's Curse dies, you can apply it to another creature within 30 feet of you. You don't regenerate the HP like you would if you just let the curse play out, but this is well worth it to keep the pain train rolling. Alright, now that we've completed the build, let's see how we did. First, the good. It is Hook City up in this piece. You have true positional control of the battlefield, and if you don't like where someone is, you move them. You also have a surprising amount of consistent damage. Between the Hexblade features and Eldritch and Agonizing Blast, you'll definitely be an asset in the damage department. I also think in terms of flavor, we really captured the dark essence of Thresh, and if you roleplay it right, you could really make this build stand out. Now the bad. This build is comprised entirely of Wizard and Warlock levels, so we are Squishtown with an even lower case S. Warlocks are notorious for only having a few spell slots, so we need to make sure we use our more potent spells in crucial situations, and not just throw them around all willy-nilly. Finally, we're relying a bit on some of Unearthed Arcana, which your DM may give you a hard time about. Just try to work with them, and hopefully this won't be much of a problem. So what'd you think? I've included a link to this build via D&D Beyond in the description below, as well as Amazon links to the books used in this build. If you enjoy this type of content, please consider supporting us on Patreon. We have a few awesome rewards, including access to our Discord community and a guaranteed champion build. We plan on churning out one League champion build every week. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll catch you on the Rift, or in the Forgotten Realms.